Hello, and welcome to EDU 510 Fundamentals of Educational Research. I'm Carrie Rose, and I'm your instructor for this term. I'd like to walk through the Canvas page a little bit with you today. And so here's the home page, and you can see that there are some buttons here: Meet Your Instructor, Syllabus, etc. But what I'd really like to go through on this page with you is a section that says Modules, if you click on that. So if you see, the modules are going to be laid out for you here, and there's going to be a chronological kind of order to it. So as you need things, they're going to appear on the Canvas page, including some introductory sections here. Most of them are very short. The syllabus is important, and I'm going to show that to you in just a minute. The course video that I'm doing right now is right here, of course, and also accessible in the email I sent, and your introductory forums, which I'd like you to do as soon as possible as the course opens. In announcements and course-related questions will come up as emails as well for you if you add there or if I add there. And then it jumps right into assignments. And so, as you'll see in the syllabus, there are assignments that are forum participation, and there are other assignments. Each assignment is here with a full rubric and the full explanation. I suggest you don't get too far into the weeds in this too quickly, and you just kind of take it as it comes. We'll do each assignment in turn, and each one leads scaffolds into the next one. Key dates at a glance, if you're interested in due dates and those kinds of things, but Canvas does that for you already. If we have an in-person synchronous Zoom meeting, of course, it's not in person, you can click here and you'll see the meeting access here. And then each module will have what you need to do that module in there, open up as you need it. So maybe some notes, maybe a discussion forum, maybe a video to watch, etc. So whatever you need will be in there, and more will appear as the different modules take place. I think there's 6 altogether. So that's really all you have to know about the Canvas page. Is pretty straightforward. Now, when you click on that syllabus button, you'll get a page that looks like this. And you'll see that it has some introductory information, of course, on the course. It has the 2 textbooks listed, as I've already talked about in an email. This APA manual, some people like to have it in a hard copy, but it's probably not necessary if you haven't already bought it, because there's other ways, like APA OWL, for example, Online Writing Lab by Purdue. Those references also can function to help you through APA questions. The distribution of grades in the course is here. You can see that discussion forums are part of it, but also part 1 and part 2 of an annotated bibliography. And I know you've done one before, but this one is a little different. And there's, again, some scaffolding in there with the different parts of the assignment. Each module with dates and weeks and what's due is actually outlined carefully for you in the syllabus. If you see any errors here or anything that doesn't make sense to you, let me know. I've carefully tried to adjust it from last term, but as you know, sometimes things get overlooked. So let me know if you see anything that doesn't make sense. But the chapter readings and the links to any videos and things, and sometimes the articles are here. Sometimes those links break. Let me know if they do. You can also just look them up in the library yourself if you can't find the article and the link doesn't work and you can't get me on email right away or something if it's late at night or something. The assignments are briefly talked about here. So you can just go through here and just take a look at what is going to be expected of you. Some people call this course one of the heaviest in terms of content. So I guess you have to kind of be prepared for that. And this grading stuff is just standard. The only thing I've added recently is the use of AI and artificial intelligence tools, which are not outlawed, certainly, but we ask that you use them ethically and responsibly and not to write for you, obviously. That would be very difficult to do in a course like this, as you'll see. But the idea is that you are going to do original work. And if you need a little help editing or a little help, I don't know, with images, those kinds of things, that's what I use it for. You can use ChatGPT or any other AI generator to help you, but not to do the work for you. That's obvious. Your teachers, you already know that, right? It's asynchronous, so it's not really an attendance course, and any synchronous Zoom sessions we have will be optional, so don't worry about that either. If you're struggling in any way and you need accessibility issues, there's places to go to do that. And if you can't find help, I can help you find help. The one thing I guess I would just say is that I would like you to communicate with me if there's anything there that's giving you troubles, you don't understand, doesn't make sense to you, or even if you're struggling with due dates and you need a bit of grace because working full time and doing grad coursework is difficult. So if there's something you need from me, I can't help you if you don't talk to me. So I'm just an email away. So with that, I don't want to keep you long. I'm going to try to keep all these videos under 10 to 15 minutes at the longest. And so I'm going to jump right into the section on where I give you a little explanation of what I'd like you to think about as you go through the readings in this module. And I'll do that for each module. Okay, so module 1. I think, first of all, I'd like to introduce you to the textbooks. The textbooks I know are expensive, but they are brand new. That's good. They have great case studies. It's really difficult to find any other kind of sources, especially for free, that are this really good, comprehensive. They work in almost any situation. They're new, all of those things. And I've got good examples. And so that's why we've chosen these textbooks. This one is available at the University of Alberta Library, but it's kind of clunky and you can't copy the whole thing or download the whole thing. You have to read online a lot of it. So it's up to you whether you want to actually buy the book or a digital copy of the book, or you want to survive with reading online. But it is available at the U of A library. And these 3 authors are very distinguished. Especially, I would say, especially Miriam, because we see her name all the time in how to do qualitative research publications. But the other 2 as well have won many awards in the terms of how to do and think about qualitative research. And I'm going to say probably in this course, you're going to tend towards qualitative research. Quantitative research is not outlawed by any means, but quantitative research is difficult to do in the kind of time frames that we have for this program. That said, you're going to learn about quantitative research and how to think about it and how to look at it as well. So we have our second textbook, and our second textbook is just called Educational Research. And this one talks about both quantitative and qualitative research. And that's where we'll be discussing especially the quantitative research ideas that the other textbook doesn't cover. So again, very well respected. This textbook is foundational in many educational research and other research courses, medical research, law research, social sciences research. And so it's a very well respected textbook, and also fairly new. In fact, we're asking you to have the newer one, even though I've got this older year here. If you're still using the older year, we're saying that's acceptable, but if you are buying something, buy the new one. Okay. What is research? So here we're going to ask you to think a little bit about what the word research really means, which is something that you're going to be asked to do eventually as your capstone project. So research is not actually that easy to define when you think about it, but I've attempted here. I've called it a systematic, theoretically informed, ethical examination of a particular phenomenon in a social context. And of course, not all research is in a social context if you're, a physicist or something. But in our case, it pretty much always is, because we're talking about educational research. Systematic, I think, because you just don't go willy-nilly deciding that you're going to do research by running around and, I don't know, talking to people. You have to think about it quite carefully. First of all, you have to think about your method and how it conforms or how it looks to other readers or people who might want to look at your research and decide whether to accept it or not as valid. Theoretically informed means you've thought about kind of what is behind that research in terms of your thinking, your philosophy, your goals for the research, those kinds of things. We're going to help you through that in this course. And of course, it has to be ethical. And we'll talk a little bit about that in this course too, about what ethics approval means in research and whether you need it or not in certain circumstances. Either way, whether you need a formal ethics approval or not from a university or a school board, you still need, of course, to conduct your research ethically. So we'll talk a little bit more about what that means in terms of doing research in schools, for example. And of course, it's a social context. And so we'll be talking a little bit about what that means and how it can be quite a complicating factor, actually, in doing research, is that there's all kinds of things that can happen in social environments. So it's not anybody's opinion, and anybody who has even if they have a published paper in a peer-reviewed journal and they're giving their opinion, that's still not research. There's a space for opinion papers in published works, but it's not research. And it's not common sense. It's not just going out and saying, well, this just makes sense, so it must be true. I mean, there's a lot of interrogation that has to happen about your own biases or about what the system is leading us to believe, those kinds of things. And so it's neither of those two things. So the question is, how do we do research well? And that's what we're going to try to guide you through in this course and the ones that follow. This is just an introduction. We're not just talking about your own topic. You're also talking about looking at other people's research. And so we'll be doing some kind of broader ideas about what research can look like as well. So it's also a process of steps, and it's not necessarily linear. And so you may have to revisit things. You may have to go around and revisit things again. And I think you'll see that in your annotated bibliographies. Although you might have already written one, this one's going to look different because you're at a different stage in your research process. And as you go through the literature and look at it again and again, your lens, the way you look at it, will change slightly, and you'll see that you're seeing different things. You also you may actually change what you want to investigate or how you want to investigate it as you go, and that's still okay. We tell you in the first courses not to get locked into something necessarily, because you may change as you learn more and you might decide you want to do things a little differently. So that's still true in this course. We're going to ask you not to lock in too hard on exactly how and what you want to research. This is just a picture of a very prominent educational research journal. Of course, if you're an academic, you want to get published into especially very prestigious academic research journals, and you can actually look up their impact factor or how prestigious they are. But for your purposes, of course, you're not writing to be published. You're writing to get a master's degree. And so you are, though, going to go through many of the same steps. And by the end of the course, you're going to get to the first step, which is identifying the problem. And then you're going to go through the rest of the steps as you proceed through your research process. And so eventually you'll have a research question or questions that you want to answer. You'll be reviewing the literature throughout. You've already been doing that, and you're going to continue to do that. You're going to have a purpose for your research, and as you get more and more through these courses, that purpose should become clearer and clearer, and usually does that kind of automatically, but you're going to be stating it. And you're going to collect data, whatever that means. And we've got a couple of different options for what that looks like. It can look like more of a traditional data collecting process where you do interviews or surveys or those kinds of things. Or it can look a little bit more like a project where you actually implement something in your environment. And we'll talk more about that later. I don't want to get into details about that here, but you're going to do some work where you're working in the environment, and then you're going to analyze and interpret what happened or what you think about that. And you're going to report and evaluate the research. Typical educational research reads kind of like a science lab report, right? And that's on purpose to try to maintain kind of the ability for the reader to make sense of it, and also for the reviewers to be able to analyze whether they think the research is good quality or not. We'll talk more about what makes good quality research as we get further through the course. maybe a better question right now is why do research in the first place? I mean, it seems obvious why do research if you're trying to cure cancer or something. But why do educational research? The reason why we do these in master's degrees, we talk about this in master's degrees, is because thinking about how educational systems or classrooms or whatever else in the educational environment is organized can really shed some light sometimes that maybe needs to be shed on a educational system, how actions affect other people, how we can live well with others in these institutions that really are trying to help children, youth, adults to move forward in their educational journeys, how we can come to know other people that may be different from us, how the whole work can be better. Can we work better in some ways that will, I don't know, reduce workload for teachers? Can we work better in ways that are kinder to students and teachers? I mean, what does better mean? That's a good question. And that would be some thinking that you would do as you're going through your process of thinking about where you want to go with your own research project. Better policies and governance as well, especially if you're thinking about educational leadership in terms of administration. What do policies and governments, what difference does that make in an educational institution or environment? And can you help that institution work towards what we might call here at the U of A? We often talk about the common good, the idea that we lift all boats, that we'd like to have our educational institutions be a good place for everybody to try to go on their educational journey. And to consider our own practices, possibly. You can study your own practices or those of others close to you at institutional and or personal levels, professional levels. And that can involve studying very small things, maybe like, I don't know, how you organize a single classroom, to very large levels, like how worldwide systems interact with each other. Probably won't be doing that at this point because that's very large undertaking. And the meso levels are in between. So how does a school system work, for example? So thinking about these different levels that you can consider and everything in between is something that researchers do. So one of the biggest skills a new researcher develops right off the bat is doing observation. And of course, all of us observe all the time, but it's surprising what we don't notice, or it's surprising sometimes what we notice and let slip through our glance because we're not paying attention to that particular thing at that particular time. So this is can be really interesting, and we ask you right away in the first assignment to go and observe a social situation and think about what you're observing and what it's telling you and what you're seeing and what you're not seeing as you observe. So we're going to get you to go to a natural setting. So any public place is acceptable. And you are going to just observe what happens. And of course, not include anybody's names or faces or anything like that. No identifiable information. And you're going to do it ethically, but you're just going to do a little bit of observing for that first assignment and see what it's like to start to think about observing as a researcher. Now, typically, any kind of observation of humans would require research ethics board approval from a university. But there is an exception for course-based research that asks students to practice becoming researchers. There, as long as it's conducted ethically under the supervision of an instructor like me, and as long as it's done in the name of practicing a skill, you are allowed to do this research ethically without specific research ethics board approval. And so here you can see the quote out of the ethics board website that says that you're allowed to do this. So the information is gathered for skill development. So in this case, you're going to read through assignment 1, part A, and you're going to try to do that assignment by observing in a public place. And there's more information on that in the assignment 1 video, instructional video. And so you'll see it there. So once you've done that, you're going to post in discussion forum 1 what you observed and how you observed it and what you thought about that process. And you're going to respond to 2 peer posts. And you'll see the due dates up there on the Canvas page. The first due date for all the discussions forums, the first due date is the due date for you to upload your initial post. And the second due date is the due date when your responses are due. And there's 2 due dates on purpose, and that's to give everybody a chance to see everybody's posts before they get to comment. And so everybody gets a couple of comments on their post, or at least 1 or 2, including me. So they get a chance to get some feedback. And so you have to post before the commenters are able to have access to that, obviously. So there was some confusion in that in the past. There's always 2 dates for discussion forums. 1 for the due date for you to post, the second one for the due date for you to post your responses. Okay, so that's it for my instructional video. If you have any questions, please email me at the email address on the Canvas page. And as for that, you can start reading your textbooks. You can start working on observation assignment 1, assignment part A, and discussion forum 1 whenever you're ready to post on that. So have fun with it. Remember to do it in an ethical fashion, but remember that you are allowed to do this if it's a public place where people have no expectation of privacy, typically like a mall or a hockey arena or someplace like that. So welcome to the course, and we'll see you at future videos and maybe at future Zoom meetings. Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.